Hello and welcome back to the Money Bear Podcast. This is Chloe, your host, also known as Chloe Bear Money Coach. And you guys, this week has been really rough. This week and last week have just been totally crazy. I last week had a session with my business coach, and we're starting to implement some paid ad strategies. And learning that stuff is always really frustrating. I feel like sometimes it feels bigger than me, and it feels like something that just feels really time consuming and stressful. I'm the type of person who, when I would have a math class, I used to like have panic attacks for not doing well, or like my brain just shuts off with certain things. And to be fair, my brain used to shut off with things like money as well. And obviously, I was able to get over that. And now I have a whole entire business and empire teaching people how to do it as well. But I just needed to share that because I think we really glamorize entrepreneurship on the internet, and we forget to talk about the hard stuff too. And things have been really tough lately, and sometimes it feels like there's so many things that I need to work on and improve on, and so little time to do it all. And it just kind of feels like this insurmountable thing sometimes. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now, and I'm just like, "Oh my gosh, I'm just so tired." I think things will get better once I move to one location so that, I'm not totally underwater, but, the whole moving around all the time has definitely taken its toll, and I think it's because, like, if I wasn't working or trying to grow my business, it would be a lot easier to just, enjoy the road trip and not care, but I do care, and I am really excited about, like, growing this business, and so, yeah, I think that's why things are where I'm at right now, where it's just like, whew, I wanna do things, but I have to recognize that there's a time and place to do things, and right now, my number one priority really needs to be getting my health back on track because I've been sick on and off since June. You guys have heard me talk about that in pretty much every podcast episode, I feel like, for the last, like, month or 2 months. And the thing is I am not getting better, and if I'm not getting better, then I need to focus on getting better. So so anyway, yeah, that's how I'm starting the call. I know it's not like a super happy call start, but I want to be honest with you guys, and things have been hard. This week too, I also discovered that somebody has been stealing or been heavily influenced by my course and program, and decided to copy and paste some of my emails and pretend that they were their own. And they also tried to basically mirror my course instead of the Lazy Investors course. They created the Investing the Easy Way course, and stole all my main bullet points, stole all my modules. It was just kind of like, what are you doing? Like, this is a friend, and they're taking from me. And when I reached out to them and confronted them, they admitted it, but they kept making excuses about it and trying to explain how they were different. And I was like, I see that they are technically different, but like, this is heavily influenced by me, and that's not okay. So we'll see if they take it down or not. I ended up blocking them, and I said my piece. And as a business owner, I think this unfortunately is something that's pretty common, people stealing from or copycatting. And all I can do is continue to do my best and make sure that I am not copying anybody else and doing my own thing. So, anyway, that's what's been going on in Clover's life. It's just been hectic, crazy, a little bit stressful, and feeling a little bit down. But, you know, there are seasons. There are seasons to entrepreneurship. There are seasons to emotions. There are seasons to our life. And I'm just going through one of those seasons where things are a little bit harder than I would like them to be. But that's an opportunity to grow, an opportunity to change, an opportunity to dive in and dive deeper. So I am excited about that. And we'll see what happens over the next couple of months, guys. I am excited. I think under this feeling of overwhelm and stress, there is still so much excitement for what I do and where I'm going. And I think that's a really good sign. It's just sometimes it's scary. And I think growth is supposed to be scary sometimes because it's new territory, right? We're figuring out what's next, we're doing what's next. So that is what I have been dealing with this week. and where I'm at in my headspace. But I don't want to take away from the incredible guest that we have on today. I was so excited to bring on this guest, Nika Booth from debtfreegonnabe. She is an incredible and powerful person in the debt freedom space. And I just love her energy. I love her take. And she is a total expert on the public student loan forgiveness program. So I cannot wait to bring her on because she is incredible. And I think you guys are going to learn a lot from her. But before we get to her, let's talk about the money tip of the week. Now, one of my favorite investing accounts out there is one that a lot of folks don't actually use all that often, and that is the health savings account. Now, the HSA, the health savings account, is an account that in order to use it, you have to have a high deductible health plan. And it'll literally say high deductible health plan. So you've got to make sure that you are purchasing a high deductible health plan. If you are not sure if your high deductible health plan allows you to, open an HSA, call your insurance. But not a high yield savings account, a health savings account. What's really cool about it is the money that you put into a health savings account grows tax free. The money goes in pre-tax, and you spend the money tax-free as well. That is triple tax savings. So when we talk about Roth IRAs are post-tax, but you paid taxes on your income when you took that money out of your paycheck and you put it into the Roth IRA. With the HSA, it goes in before you ever get a chunk of taxes taken out of your paycheck, which is really cool. So with an HSA, it's really the only account that gives you that triple tax savings, but you have to use it in a special way. A lot of people use their HSA accounts, if they're even using their HSA account, they use it like a debit card because they're using it to pay for their health expenses. And that's totally fine. If that is what you need, if you do not have the cash on hand or the cash flow to pay for your health expenses outside of the HSA, then I would not recommend investing your HSA money. However, if you are young and you don't have a lot of medical expenses, or if you're wealthy enough that you don't even have to worry about paying for expenses like your medical expenses as they come, an HSA can be a really great tool for retirement. So with HSAs, there's usually a certain amount that you have to keep in cash. So for example, when I had health equity HSA, I had to keep $1,000 in cash, and then everything above $1,000 I could invest. So check with your custodian to see what is the limit. I now have Fidelity, and Fidelity does not require a minimum to have in cash. So I've invested the entire amount of the HSA. But if you're not sure, check with your own custodian. And they'll be able to tell you what are your options in terms of investing. The HSA is similar to the 401k in that there's only going to be a couple of investment options that you can choose from unless you go and open an HSA on your own. But I would say most people have an HSA through their work. So they just use the custodian that their workplace chose for them. And then they have a handful of ETFs or mutual funds to pick from. So that makes it a little bit easier to choose because even when I had the health equity HSA, I think all the options were like Vanguard ETFs, which was really nice. So check. It depends on your brokerage in terms of what options you've got, but you also don't have to use the HSA that your work is providing you with. You can go open an HSA elsewhere if you would like. You can opt out of the HSA that your employer is offering you and go open one somewhere else if you would like TD Ameritrade or Fidelity. That will give you more options and it might be less fees as well. It just depends. But if your employer offers you a match, you might want to keep your HSA with your employer to fully benefit from that match. So just something to keep in mind. But it's a really incredible tool. And the hack is using it like a retirement account. So the way that you do that is you invest the money in the HSA and you leave it alone. Every time you put money in, you keep investing it and it keeps growing. And instead of using the HSA to pay for your medical expenses, you pay for your medical expenses in cash and you save the receipts. That's the important part. You have to save the receipts. Why? Because then eventually, whenever you need that money, if you're an early retiree or you're starting to take withdrawals 10 years down the road, 15 years down the road, and you're ready to start withdrawing, all you have to do in order to get that money tax-free, penalty-free, is you have to submit a receipt. It's that easy. Now, keep in mind, the HSA has to have been open. So you can't submit a receipt from before your HSA was open. You've got to make sure that the HSA was already open. And then at any time, you can pull that money out tax-free as long as you've got those receipts. So be sure to have a good filing system, because over the years, you may end up having a lot of receipts. But it's a pretty cool loophole that allows you to take that money out totally legally and totally according to the rules and still completely tax-free. So in that regard, an HSA in some ways is superior to a Roth IRA account. The only reason I don't consider it superior to a Roth IRA account is because not everyone has access to it. Like if you don't have a high deductible healthcare plan, then you just can't have an HSA. So kind of cool, but that is your money tip of the week. And if you have more questions about HSAs or want to learn more, feel free to DM me on Instagram at Clobear Money Coach, and I'll send you a couple of posts I have about HSAs. So that's what we got going. Before we get to this week's episode, a friendly reminder to please rate, review, and subscribe to us. It helps us out a lot. We only grow through that way. And if I see that and you guys are doing that, it reminds me that you guys do want me to keep doing this. So please help us out in that way. And if you are starting your money journey, a friendly reminder that we have a free Get Your Money Right guide. And this guide, I know I'm biased because I created it, but it is friggin' dope. All the money resources that I love are inside of this free guide. It'll teach you my favorite budgeting method. It'll teach you my favorite budgeting templates. It'll actually give you my free budgeting template that I use. It's also got the resources that got me started with money management. It's got how to get started with investing. It's got a cheat sheet on all the different investing accounts. So I highly recommend you grab that. That's at thelazyinvestorscourse.com/guide. So you can get that. It's also in the show notes. But that's all I got for you guys today. So let's get to this week's episode. All right. Welcome back to the Money Bear podcast. I have got my friend who I'm meeting for the first time, like face to face. I know, and I'm so excited. I was like, Nika, it's about time.
It's about damn time.
Yes, but that's the beauty of the internet, right?
Absolutely.
Nika, welcome to the podcast. I'm super excited to have you here.
What's up? How you doing?
Yes. Good. How about you tell everybody a little bit about who you are, what you do on the internet, and what you do in real life?
For sure. All right. So I'm Nika. I am an award-winning debt expert, personal finance content creator, and the founder of debtfreegonnabe. I'm on a journey to tackle my own six-figure debt, and I teach others how to do the same without sacrificing fun in a way that is understood, relatable, and judgment-free. And my daytime job, I'm a public servant, and that's usually where I keep it at.
Smart. I love it. And so tell us, when you started Debt Free Gonnabe, where were you at in life? What were the things that were going on? What was kind of like the thing that you're like, all right, I got to figure this stuff out because I don't want to live like this anymore. Can you kind of paint a little picture there?
Yeah, I was broke.
Like, easy, done.
I was broke. Listen, I was broke. I was living paycheck to paycheck. And truth be told, I had actually started my debt-free journey before I started Debt Free Gonnabe. So I had started my debt-free journey in late 2018. And I had started it a couple of times. I paid off debt somewhere and then racked it up somewhere else. You know, I never really stuck with it. But it wasn't until 2018 that I was like, I've had enough. There has to be another way to live. Like, I'm not making any progress, so lean in and do everything that you need to do. Get more educated, right? Become more financially literate, but financially lit too.
Oh, financially lit. Like that's the new financially lit.
Right. And just do the thing. And so it wasn't until February of 2019 that I actually created Debt Free Gonnabe. And that wasn't an easy decision to make. Now I look back and I fully embrace why I did it. And it was to hold myself more accountable, but also because like people on social media can be mean,
yes,
and judgmental,
can.
right?
Yep.
But I did it for accountability, but I also did it for, I don't want to say validation, but affirmation, that like there are more than just me. Like there has to be more people out here struggling. But in addition to that, like I didn't know anyone like me. Like I didn't know anyone who was single, who had six-figure debt, who was a woman, who was a Black woman, who was really out here like facing all the challenges that is being a woman, in America, and talking about it, and talking about, paying off debt and the ups and the downs. Like everyone on social media tends to share always the highlight reel, and all that's good. But I just knew like, hey, like that's not life.
No.
So like I really created Debt Free Gonna Be to be that place and a safe space for people, while also holding myself accountable and documenting my own journey.
Oh, I love that. I relate to that so much, because that's how, when I originally started Clo Bear, it was like a mental health blog. And I did it the same thing that you did, was just like, I wanted to know that there were other people out there. And I also wanted that accountability, honestly. It was like,
sure.
If I'm writing about it and I'm sharing it with these people and it happens to help people, great. But I'm doing it for, my own accountability, to be able to be like, all right, I put it out there. Now people know, and the internet is a mean place. It's also an amazingly supportive place too.
For sure.
Like if you find the right place.
Yeah.
So for you, in your debt, in your six figures of debt, was it mostly from student loans, or was there other stuff sprinkled in there as well?
Oh, good question. It was other stuff sprinkled in, but 75% of it or so was like student loans. And it's still in like I still have student loans. So it's about 134,000 student loans, about 50,000 credit card. Maybe there was like $5,000 left on my car loan. So so it was a mix. And then tax debt got added to it. So like started the journey with 189,000, paid off about 16,000, and then like a year and a half, maybe like a year into the journey, I had some outstanding tax returns to file that I kind of avoided because I knew I was going to owe. But when you say you're serious about tackling your debt, you're serious about tackling all of it, right?
Right.
And so once I finally filed those tax returns and got the bill, once penalty and interest was added, it was just ridiculous. It was like $22,000. So.
And you're like, I just got out of $16,000 of debt, and now I'm not only going exactly back to where I was, I'm adding another $6,000.
You got it.
Oh,
you got it. Yeah, knocked me on my ass. I was like, forget it. I must not, I must not be, it must not be in the cards for me. Maybe this is the universe trying to tell me that I'm not supposed to get out of this debt. And I almost like completely quit, but I didn't. I kept going.
Heck yes, good for you. Because where are you at now? I know you keep your running number in her profile. So where are you at?
I am now just sitting, just as if it's still not a lot of money, but I paid off all of my credit card debt. I killed that outstanding tax debt. My car is paid off. I just have $133,000 in student loans.
Woo, that's amazing.
Those student loans should be forgiven via public service loan forgiveness in about 2 years or less.
Okay. Fingers crossed. And that is like a perfect segue into public student loan forgiveness. But before we go there, I want to know, what was your strategy for debt payoff? I think so many people would look at almost $200,000 of debt and be like, I'm fucked. And then feel totally overwhelmed and not know where the heck to start. So for you, where was your starting place, and like what approach did you take?
I definitely started using like the debt snowball method. I think, that's one of the common repayment strategies or methods to tackling debt. And that's just tackling your debt starting with the smallest balance first. So because I had all these like little stupid ass credit card balances, like $200, $300, and I'm not, at all saying that, that's not a significant amount, because I know for some people it is. But then I had also this other mountain of debt, like $15,000, on one credit card that I owed. So I started with that. And that honestly gave me the momentum and the quick wins that I needed to kind of keep going. And so anytime I experienced a hiccup in my journey, all I did was kind of like just say, oh, you know what, this is just one more thing. When that tax debt came, I thought about it. It's just one more thing. Life is full of one more things, right? But the other thing that I think I utilized that I know for a fact kept me going, and so that I didn't feel like I was depriving myself, was budgeting for fun. Like, like you have to have a budget. That's obvious. That's something else I had as well, and I don't really know how people can manage their money properly without at least some type of plan for it, whether they want to call it a budget or not. But I budgeted for fun. Like, I still ate out with my friends. Food is very big for me. It is not necessarily a non-negotiable, but it's just something that I enjoy. I love dining out. I love enjoying different types of cuisine. I just didn't do it as frequently as I used to. I'm also a huge Washington Nationals fan, and I have half-season tickets. And so what I would do, instead of swiping a credit card, going into debt to be able to do this thing that really brought me joy, I set up what's called like a sinking fund. So I saved every month for it so that I could pay for the tickets when it was time to. So I think, just making sure I had a realistic budget, using the Snowball method and not being afraid to switch it up when I needed to, as well as like budgeting for fun, that definitely got me through some of the dark days of tackling debt.
Yes. Well, and I love that you mentioned that, because I think that's something a lot of people like miss out on. It's so easy to be like really black and white about it and just be like, we all know the loudest voice in the debt freedom industry is always talking about you shouldn't see the inside of a restaurant if you are in debt. And it's like, no, that's not
the dumbest shit I've ever heard of in my life. It's
so stupid. And not only that, it's like, this is not sustainable. And you have to enjoy the journey just as much as you enjoy the destination. Absolutely. And like you said, and when you're dealing with $200,000 of debt, it's going to take years to pay that off. And if you expect to stay that journey, you got to enjoy it too.
Listen,
like you got to put some fun in there. So I love that.
I'm a single person. I'm not going to be miserable tackling debt. I'll get to it when I get to it. Don't trust me. I'm going to continue on in the right direction, but I'm not comparing my journey to anybody else's. I'm not trying to keep pace with anybody else. I'm going to enjoy my life because this is the only one I get.
Yep. Exactly. I love that. And you're responsible for it. Like, I love that you mentioned the single woman part, because that is such a big part of it. Like, we get to design our own lives. We get to go on our own, like by the beat of our own drum. Thank you very much. Love it. Well, that's amazing how much you've paid off in such a short period of time. Honestly, I mean, that's huge. Like,
and I'm tired.
I am sure. So now I want to pivot into talking about the public student loan forgiveness, because you had mentioned that $135,000 will be forgiven by that public student loan forgiveness. Let's talk about that. So Nika has really become, I would say, an expert in PSLF. Like, when I see your content, I see you talking about PSLF a lot, and I feel like you really know the ins and outs. So first of all, what made you dive deep into that program to really understand it? I'm assuming it's because of the $135,000 of debt you want forgiven.
I mean, yeah, but so also here's the thing. So I had enrolled in PSLF probably about 3 years after joining the federal workforce. And at the time, it sounded good. Like, I was like, okay, I love this job. I'm going to be here. My loans are going to be forgiven after 10 years. This is great. But the approval rate was shit. Prior administrations there was so much red tape. There were people who were eligible for the actual forgiveness who were getting denied left and right. And I think the last time I looked, the approval rate was maybe like 2%. So literally 98% of the people who would apply for forgiveness through this program would be denied.
Which is terrifying.
It's terrible.
So many people go into those types of careers because of the PSLF program.
Because of PSLF, yes.
That's wild. Okay.
And take a pay cut at the same
Yeah.
time, right? Because if I go to the private sector, I could make way more money than I make now being a public servant.
Right. And a lot of public servant roles, I don't know, this might just be my perception of it.
Mhm.
Don't a lot of them need masters or request?
Not a lot of them.
Okay.
I won't say like, so I only know from the agency that I work for that will not be named, but I will say for that agency, there are a lot of people who do have I do work with a lot of people with advanced degrees.
Yeah.
But that's not federal workforce wide. It
Mhm.
just so probably happens to be that way because there are a lot of women in the federal workforce, and a lot of women have multiple degrees, right? Because then you've got to worry about all the things like the pink tax and the gender and wealth pay gaps and all that other stuff. That's, that's a whole other
episode,
right? Other episode. Yeah. So anyway, so I'd actually, around the time that I had started my debt-free journey, I had actually stopped like certifying my employment for PSLF because I was like, well, you know what? Here's the thing. I've got all this debt. I'm starting to really not want to work for anybody else. And it's not a guarantee that they're going to forgive my loan. So I actually took a step back and I was like, fuck PSLF. Like, I don't care about it. Like, it's not for me. I'll tackle my debt myself. And that's really the other thing that kind of precipitated like me starting my journey. Cause it's like, I got to kill this other debt and then tackle my student loan so I can get up out of here. Mm-hmm. But a new administration came in and I started to pay attention to the people that they were placing that were being hired for and within the Department of Education. Mm-hmm. And some of these people were coming from other public service organizations, but had done great. Like they worked at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And I'm like, oh, wait a second. Like, this is a good addition. Maybe they're going to make some changes. Right.
Right.
And they did. So it wasn't until the limited PSLF waiver came out where I really started to pay attention to PSLF and started doing a deep dive into the changes that they were implementing, whether they be permanent or temporary. And that's when when the light bulb went off and it's like, I've been in federal service for 12 years. Mm-hmm. This is it. They're finally making the changes to this program for it to work the way it's supposed to work. I could not have to tackle my debt on my own.
Right.
This shit might get forgiven.
Right.
And after that, I was like, everybody's got to know about this. This is what I'm learning, y'all. And so that is pretty much how my content shifted from like general debt payoff to student loans. Yes. And then the more I talked about it, the more people came.
Right. Well, and so for those who are hearing this and saying like, wait, what's the limited waiver? Yeah. What are you talking about? Can you kind of dive into what that is?
For sure. So the limited waiver is this once in a lifetime opportunity that was announced last October. Mm-hmm. And what this does, it allows for retroactive credit towards, let me back up before that. So, because it's like, some people might be like, well, what are the requirements for public service loan forgiveness?
That's a good point.
So basically the public service loan forgiveness is a program that forgives any outstanding student loan balance for borrowers who work full-time for a public service organization or other nonprofit after making 120 payments or 10 years. So the payments do not have to be consecutive. Also as a requirement is that like you have to be in a certain type of repayment plan and the payment would need to be received within 15 days after the due date. All right. So those are in a nutshell, the regular rules of PSLF. Mm-hmm. Well, with this waiver, they're relaxing all of those rules. Not all, excuse me. They're relaxing most of the rules with the exception of the requirement for the employer. So you would still have to be employed during either now or during the time you were making the payments. You would need to be employed by a public service organization or other nonprofit. But this means they're allowing one-time credit for past payments that didn't originally fall within the rules of PSLF. They're giving credit for payments even before you consolidated your loans. They're giving credit for payments even if you didn't make a payment. And let me elaborate. Because during this whole pandemic, A lot of federal loans have been paused. A lot of people have allowed their loans to be paused, their payments to be paused, so that they can tackle other high interest rate debt or whatever they need to do, right?
Right.
The non-payments count towards the payment requirement for PSLF.
Okay, that's huge.
It is huge, right?
Holy crap.
Right. So it just gives people breathing room, right? So that they can do other things while not making these ridiculous student loan payments and worrying about the ridiculous predatory interest that comes with student loans, all while, and assuming they're in public service, all while those payments are they're still getting monthly credit towards the 120 payments. And we're talking now, 2 years?
24 payments at least. Yeah, I mean, we're going into 3 years.
Exactly. And that's huge. That's a game changer. And they are also doing this adjustment for periods of deferment as well as periods of forbearance. So this has the potential, and actually not has the potential. It has already allowed people to reach forgiveness. I have a colleague who received quite a few checks in the mail shortly after the waiver was announced from the Department of Treasury because of the overpayments, because he had already met 120 payments and over, and so they gave him money back, right? And
oh my gosh, what a great day that must have been, getting those checks in the mail.
Right, and it will get other people, including myself, closer to forgiveness, where otherwise we would have been years away from achieving forgiveness.
Right. Oh my God, that's amazing. So for you, did that accelerate your forgiveness by by 2 or 3 years?
By actually more than that. So if I'm not mistaken, my payment count was somewhere around 60, maybe 50, 60 before the waiver. And again, I had not been certifying my employment at all. And then I didn't start PSLF until a few years after I had actually been in the government. And now my payment count is up to 109.
Oh my gosh, you're so close. Holy cow. So then question.
Yeah.
You said that it doesn't matter. So you're like, it's all about 120 payments, but it doesn't matter if they're consecutive. So could you, and theoretically, make like extra payments to get there faster?
No.
Or does it? Oh, okay. All right. No, I was like, could you just make a bunch of $10 payments?
No,
and just
you
be
cannot.
Like, I'm there.
Yeah. But then what they are doing though, because the payment also still needs to be the minimum, that has to meet the minimum that would be due.
Gotcha.
But what they are doing is they are codifying or making into law some of the temporary relief that's in the waiver. They're making it permanent come next July.
That's amazing.
But this waiver, again, once in a lifetime. I mean, people who have left federal service but made the 120 payments or would reach 120 payments through the waiver that had prior service in some type of public service role, you can get your loans forgiven. And this waiver expires on October 31st. They are not extending it. And I am trying to encourage everyone to tell everyone to apply before it expires, because it is truly game changing.
So there is an application, and I'm assuming you have resources that we can shout out to.
Of course I
help people learn how to apply for that. So where can they learn how to apply for that, what the stipulations are, and things like that?
Yeah. So a good resource is studentaid.gov. That is usually where I get all of my stuff, but I do have a free PSLF guide that can help people. I guess it's usually linked in my Instagram bio, but we can drop it in the notes or something for this.
Absolutely.
But it's basically just a quick reference guide. It has this nice table that says, if this is your situation, then do this, because some people may need to actually consolidate in order to be able to qualify for the waiver, because they don't have the student loan type that would qualify for it. And then it has all the links that you need. It has a PSLF help tool. It has an employer search function so that you can determine whether or not your employer actually qualifies for public service loan forgiveness. Tons of resources in that, including a link to the application and where you can send that off to.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh. And I guarantee you guys, this guide's going to be a whole lot nicer than trying to navigate the federal government's website.
For sure.
Yeah. So we will leave a link to that down in the show notes for sure, because that's an amazing resource.
Thank you.
Very cool. Okay. So then Now that we've talked about the limited waiver, we've kind of talked about what the PSLF program is in general. Now that you've gone through the process and really gone and understood PSLF, what are kind of like 3 things that you wish you had known or you wish more people knew about the program?
Yeah. All right. So one of them I've already hit on it, and it's the major one. It is the waiver. October 31st is the deadline. Get your paperwork in. The form is the same form for anyone who is already familiar with PSLF or in PSLF, but they have not maybe recertified their employment. It's the same form. So the application form for it is the same form that you would use to basically say, yes, I've worked in this organization for this year. Give me my payment credit, right? So the waiver is it, October 31st. The other thing I wish people would, or people knew about PSLF, is that you have to actually certify your employment every year.
Right.
That's one thing I was hoping that they would change. And I think I heard some rumors about them changing it, but yet it has not, it hasn't happened yet. So
I would imagine that's gotta like prevent a lot of people from actually like doing it because they don't know, right?
And also it's a headache too. I mean, we're already working and you're telling me, and I'm already making payments that I maybe can't afford. And now you're telling me every year I've got to go chase somebody down at my job to sign this form, basically saying, yes, I still work here.
That's so archaic.
Yes.
It's so archaic.
Which is why I think they should change it. There should be some other way to verify employment, right? And I understand
tax returns,
right? And I understand, and I definitely understand why, because it's the employer that qualifies you for PSLF, not necessarily the job function, right?
Right.
But yeah, I mean, just even that, like, why can't I just click a button and you, like, I don't know, your HR talk to their HR or something, something like that, where you can just like verify the employment. So that's the other thing. So if you have not certified your employment, whether you haven't applied to the PSLF program at all ever, or you haven't resubmitted for your employer certification since October of last year, you got to do it. Don't assume that just because you're already in the PSLF program that you don't need to fill out that paperwork and that you're automatically going to get the relief through the waiver. So please do that.
Very important.
Very important. So the other thing I think people really need to know is that when you're getting the signatures, and it's really what I find that I try to tell people the most are the things that usually would disqualify them for the program, right? What would automatically get their applications rejected. And this is the big one. When you get signatures for your form, so the form, you sign it and someone in your organization signs it, attesting to the fact that, yes, you've worked here for this amount of time, full time. If those signatures are not wet signatures or otherwise hand drawn, your application gets rejected. And you have to resubmit. And I know this from personal experience.
I was going to say, so do they explain that in a like very obvious way on their website?
It's on the website, but it's not on the form.
Oh my
Which is where it should be. So yeah,
so then when that got rejected, did the whole year get like debunked for you?
No, okay. Not at all. It just wouldn't count until I submitted a new form with the right signatures. So when I'm talking about wet signatures or hand drawn, I'm just really referring to the fact that you can't, a lot of people are working remotely or at home these days.
Right.
So they're not, they don't have access to the person anymore. So you can still write a sign on a piece of paper, upload it, and then use that. But what you can't do is you can't use font that looks like it's script, like and type the signature.
Gotcha.
And like if you do work for an organization that utilizes like security certificates in the digital signature, that doesn't qualify either, which is crazy because I use my digital signature for work every day, type in a little code. There's my signature, right?
Well, and you can and you can sign things on the internet as well. Like you can sign. Oh man. Yeah. Wow. That's good to know.
So you can hand draw with a mouse. You can, they can print it out or whatever and sign. However, just make sure it's a signature. It's not typed and it's not a certificate-based signature.
Good to know. Oh my gosh. Gold.
Yeah. Cause we don't have time. Listen, we don't have time to waste. So, there's a long turnaround between the time that they give it to you. They say, hey, your application is rejected. You get that form back in. It's taking them longer and longer to process these forms because more and more people are getting hit. Right. And they're like, oh, it's almost October. Let me get my shit together. So you don't want any you don't want to get rejected on any technicalities.
Oh my gosh, the frustration after like going through all of that. And then if you miss the deadline, I wonder if they would
Oh,
let you resubmit after the deadline or not.
so you
That
can resubmit after the deadline, but you will not get the concessions for the waiver. That's the only thing.
what?
Yeah. Once the waiver expires on October 31st, that's it.
Oh my
Until
gosh.
they put into law the other aspects of the waiver that they're going to make permanent. Yeah, that's
Okay.
it. So that retroactive credit, done.
Well, I'm glad we are doing this podcast episode now because this is going to come out on October 17th. So for
Wow.
everyone
Just in time.
who is listening, you have 2 weeks. Go download Nika's free guide.
Please.
Make sure you're going through and doing this because this is a game changer. I mean,
Yeah.
that's huge. Have
For
they,
sure.
I'm assuming they probably won't release like new stats yet on like how many people are getting approved now, but I'll be curious to see how that 2% number changes.
Same.
Hopefully,
It's definitely way more. It's way more than that. I remember shortly after the waiver, they're not necessarily about their approval rate, but they did have like data on how many people were eligible, and it was still eligible, but had not done the paperwork. And that's all they
Right.
were waiting for was the employment to be certified. So yeah, it would be great to see the approval rates at this point. I know it's higher than what it was before.
Yeah,
I mean,
before,
but yeah.
what's crazy is like it could be 10 times better and it's still only 20%. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, I mean, that's definitely an improvement, but it just I would be so jaded to pick something where I'm literally serving my country.
Oh, exactly.
And then to turn around and find out, oh, it's an incredibly complicated process. And the likelihood of you getting your student loans forgiven, even though you picked this career likely because you could.
Yeah.
I have 2 siblings who were, really hoping for the PSLF. And one of them no longer qualifies because they kind of were like, I could be making so much more money doing something else.
Yeah.
And they're like, screw this. But another one is still in that process. So I'm going to make sure he downloads that free guide too.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, that's massive. So awesome. Everybody needs to know about this stuff. So I love it. I have 2 more questions for you.
Sure.
So one is on your debt freedom journey, you've paid off almost $100,000 of debt now.
Yeah.
What is there anything along the way that you wish you had done differently?
Yeah, I would have started sooner.
You answered so quick.
No, seriously, like my journey is my journey and it worked out the way that it was supposed to work out. I've learned so much. I've been able to meet so many awesome people, including you. And one day we'll do that IRL. And I don't regret anything about my journey. I just wish that I had gotten out of my way and started sooner. And that's really what's holding a lot of people back. It's the I don't have everything I think I need to have, or it's not perfect, or it's not going to be perfect. And it's really delaying them from getting to the life that they want, to having that breathing room, to being able to save, invest, and, take better care of future self instead of paying for, all the things that past self did or what's going on present. And so, that's my biggest thing. I encourage people to just start today. And here's a tool to help you, So yeah, I would have definitely started sooner.
Yeah, no, I think that's everybody's like, even in investing, I don't focus too much on debt freedom or any of that because I'm like, there are better people out there who are doing it. But the investing, it's the same thing. Everybody always, once they learn about investing, they're like, why didn't I start this when I was 9 years old working at a concession stand, you know?
Because time is everything, especially when it comes to investing. And the same is true for paying off debt. I mean, we're paying interest to people instead of being able to hold on to that money ourselves to invest in it and take advantage of that compound interest in the market, So
yeah, exactly. Well, I love it. All right. My last question is a fun question.
Okay.
It's a question I ask everybody who comes onto the podcast.
Do I know the answer?
You should. Yeah. I'm like, all right, she failed. It's not like that kind of question. What is your very first money memory?
Oh shit, my mother telling me that we didn't have McDonald's money. Oh my goodness. So this is probably a Black family thing, but I was raised by my mom primarily. And, we didn't have money conversations. Anytime I asked for something, and this is no fault of my mom, I understand circumstances and resources, and I know a lot more than I did then, so I have a different perspective. But yeah, I just remember wanting things and to be honest, they weren't things I needed. Okay. So I never went without food, clothing, shelter, any of that. But I just remember money being this negative thing, always being something that was in limited quantities, and something that you could not really use for things that made you happy. They were just, it was a survival thing. So that's really my earliest memory of money, is just being a child and wanting something, and then being like completely like shut down. Like, nah, that shit's not happening.
I love how you phrased it of like, we don't have McDonald's money.
That's what and that's what she would say. She would literally say that at times, where it would be like, you know, we have food at home. We have food at home. We have food at home. You know, do you have McDonald's money? And I'd be like, well, no, because I'm 8. Like, of course I don't, you know? So yeah, that's probably my earliest. I mean, unfortunately, it's a negative one. And it that and others helped shape, you know, my relationship with money and debt. But that is, in fact, my earliest money memory.
Yeah,
that's a good question.
Well, I think it's always so interesting, and it's one of the questions I ask even in my course, because I think it reveals a lot about us and what we, you know, so many of us, we go through life not really even thinking about how we spend our money until we make a decision to change that. And I remember the first time I did that for myself, and I was like, mine was all about like, girls are bad with money and boys are good with money, because my brothers were really good at saving money, and we got a small allowance from the time I was a little kid. And my mom was like, you know, you can save it or you can spend it. And so I'd bring my happy ass to Kmart with her every single week with my dollar. Yes. And I'd buy like, you know, the stupidest little things that would be like gone and disappeared, and just a disappointment every single week. Meanwhile, my brothers were like hoarding away their dollars. And I was like, well, I guess girls are just bad with money. And that stuck with me for until I sat down and like, you know, decided, nah, it's a skill. I can probably learn how to do this.
Wow.
You know?
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Well, and it's just like, do you think, thinking now that that's your first money memory, do you think that impacted you?
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
You know, because it seemed, it definitely came from a scarcity mindset. And I think that once I had thinking that money was this limited resource, and that there wasn't enough for everyone, you know, I think that once I got my hand on credit, it just went, you know, it's kind of like one of those, I didn't have this before, you know, and now I've got adult money now, but that adult money was someone else's.
Right.
You know, so it was just the constant, you know, financing lifestyle, you know, one bad decision after another. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So are you telling me that you had $55,000 of credit card debt for McDonald's?
Not but a fancier version of McDonald's. Yeah.
I'm totally teasing. I love it.
Sure.
Yeah, no. And like you said, you know, I would say 90% of the people who come on who I ask that question, it is actually a negative first money memory. So I think it's maybe that's why so many of us, I mean, obviously a lot of people who come on are money creators. Maybe that's why so many of us decided to go out there and do something about
it. Absolutely. I mean, because there's nothing like helping people through your own story, right? You know, talking about your own mistakes, you know, and them being able to see you as a cautionary tale of what not to do. So
100%. I got to that point where I was like, wow, money is life-changing. And knowing how to use it is life-changing.
It really is.
So, all right. Well, before I let you go, promote yourself. Tell us what you got going on. Tell us where they can find you. What do you got going on, Nika?
Absolutely. So you can find me always on Instagram at debtfreegonnabe. I've got a blog I don't really do anything with, but you can check that out too at debtfreegonnabe.com. I am actually like shutting down my coaching calendar, Chloe, because I need to finish and launch my student loan course.
I am so proud of you.
Thank you.
It is life-changing.
Yeah.
Like to go from one-on-one coaching to a course, it's going to change your life.
I'm burned out too, you know, and I know I need to step away to get that done. Because I wake up to questions. I go to sleep to questions, and I can't get to everyone because I'm just one person. And so I know this course is going to change a lot of lives. There's so many changes coming to student loans, so many announcements that we're going to be expecting in the next few months. Payments are going to be resuming. So That's what I'm promoting at this point. Look out for my student loan course. It will be a 5 or 6 week course, but you will have access to coaching with me to help fill out any forgiveness forms you need to fill out, to help you navigate student loan repayment plans and what's going to be the best thing for you when payments resume. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. You can keep up to date on my blog as well as Debt Free Gonna Be on Instagram.
That's amazing. What an incredible resource that's going to be. So I'm so excited. You'll have to let me know when
Thank
it's
you.
launched,
Of
and I
course
will
I will.
absolutely share that.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, it was absolutely a joy talking to you. I'm so glad I got you
Likewise.
on today.
For sure.
Thank
This is fun.
you.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Okay, do you see what I mean by just loving Nika? She's freaking amazing. Her energy is impeccable, and she just has so much knowledge when it comes to the PSLF and debt forgiveness and all that good stuff. So be sure to get that freebie that she mentioned. That's going to be down in the show notes. And if you guys made it this far, I just want to thank you guys for listening and give you a friendly reminder to please rate, review, and subscribe if you haven't already. It helps us out a lot, and we really, really appreciate it. And of course, since we're talking about money, don't forget that everything on this show is just for educational and entertainment purposes only. None of this is meant to be taken as financial advice. We don't know you. We're talking into the internet. So at the end of the day, if you're trying to get personal advice, we recommend working with a financial professional who knows your personal situation. So hope that helps. If you want to see our full terms and conditions, head on over to the link in the show notes or head on over to clobear.com and search for our terms and conditions. So that's all I got for you guys today. I hope you have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next week. Bye.